Hey, this is Mark here at Gary's Guitars in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and I'm here to talk about Fender. Oh no, he's taking on Daddy. Don't do it. No, I'm not going to. I'm not come to speak ill of Fender, but I've come to tell the truth about what's going on. Right now as I make this video. It's the end of 2024, beginning of 2025 season. Um, so there's been a bunch of changes, and I'll talk about that. I have another video that gets amazing amounts of just comments because it's just the video itself just talks about, and it's a couple years old, but people keep finding it. It's just about like the different guitar makes that Fender has, like different countries of manufacture and lines, and how they all kind of fit together into their well-planned little program. So I thought this would be a good video to talk about what Fender now and going forward. First of all, just a little background, though I should have Wikipedia'd this to be as accurate as possible. But Fender's a company of about 3,000 employees, last I did check. They have a factory in California that employs 300 people. They have a factory in Mexico that has 1,000 people working there. I think they did some layoffs in California, so it might be less than that now. And their corporate offices are in Arizona, probably for tax reasons. They are an amazing manufacturer of guitars and amps, a ubiquitous brand. They're everywhere, all over the world. And so for such a small company to be so all over the world is pretty amazing. So hats off to that. So what are they doing? Well, you can watch the other video to understand what they do with Squire and Made in Mexico production versus Made in the USA production. But the general trend of what's happening is less American production, more Mexican production, more Asian production. That's where everything seems to be going. Now, as I'm making this video, things could change because there are threats of tariffs against Mexican manufacturing, so we'll find out about that. But for now, they concentrate their manufacturing in that Mexico plant. It got built 25 years ago or something. It's pretty technologically advanced, they claim. I heard from someone at Fender that they would take bodies that American-made bodies, ship them to Mexico to be painted, and then ship them back to Fender, just because it's so much easier to spray paint in Mexico than it is in California. And that the factory is just bigger and better suited to it. So expect more of that interlocking thing with the American-made Fenders and the Mexican production. Expect Mexican production to keep improving as far as what they allow to go out of the Mexican factory, because they can make great guitars in the Mexican factory, and they're proving that. The Player 2 series are noticeably better. The Ventura 2 series are noticeably better. So they can make good guitars in the Mexican factory, but it's all a function of price. So the guitars that can charge more for, they can put better materials and more time into making them, and that just gets some better end results. But here's the big thing I want to talk about Fender today, which is what is brewing on the horizon with Fender. Fender is a manufacturer, and traditionally you would have a manufacturer, like a factory and a brand, and then you would have a distributor, and then you would have a retailer. And so those are the kind of like the capitalist way of things. So the manufacturer didn't know how to sell their own stuff, but they knew how to make it, and they knew what they could sell it for. And usually the markup in that isn't fabulous. It's not a ton of money. Generally speaking, in manufacturing, if you like a 40% markup is great, So if it costs you $60 to make something, you can sell it for $100. That's a win. Fender as a manufacturer, and Fender is also their own distributor, and this is happening more and more with a lot of other companies. Companies that are manufacturing do their own distribution. Therefore, they can kind of double dip a little. So they make something for $60. They kind of sell it to themselves for $100, and that company sells it to me they mark it up 20% more. So now it's $140. So 20% would be $120, for example. and then I sell it to the end user for $200. Um, or whatever. Those are all rough numbers. And then I have costs other than the cost of the goods, of course, moving things around. But we all have costs associated with what we're doing. So it's just a little advantageous sometimes for companies to have their own distribution. But now Fender as a company is bridging that gap all the way to the buyer, the end buyer, by selling directly to consumers. I saw this happen with other companies. So 5 years ago, Fender assured me our site is there to drive customers to you. And our marketing is done so that people come to you and buy Fender guitars. And it's kind of true, or was. So, but now it's a little different. Now, phase one is companies just had informational sites. Phase two is what Fender did at the time, 4 or 5 years ago, saying, we'll offer it for sale on our site as well. We'll tell them that you have it and you're a dealer, and we will sell it on, we'll play by our own rules. We'll sell it for the same map pricing thing that we, map is minimum advertised price. That's kind of the street price on most things. We'll sell it for that same price to the end customer, so they're not saving money by buying direct. And it's just another way for them to buy a guitar. And rising tide lifts all boats and all that good stuff. So I said, what am I going to do? Make a deal with Fender? I'll just take what you got. So now Fender's entered this other phase of selling, where they're making more direct contact with the buyer and selling directly to the buyer. Not just that, but they're now making kind of special edition things, online only Fender products, a custom color, an unusual model, and they're using their marketing rather than driving customers to us to drive them to Fender.com to check out. So they're making a closer connection to the end buyer, kind of hopping over the retailer. There's a good reason for this. Their future retail is very questionable, especially brick and mortar style retail, and so they have to cover themselves. They have to sell 100,000 guitars every year, whatever the number is now. I don't know. But when something like Guitar Center is threatening to, well, they're not threatening to, but there's go out of business. This idea of Guitar Center pays the interest on their loans, but they never pay off the principal, and they are they've always been in this kind of precarious situation for so long that a downturn could send them. They did a reorganization, but a downturn could just send them, put them out of business, and then Fender no longer has most of their retail stores to deal through. So they're doing this a little defensively. Someone from Fender told me that they would consider opening their own Fender stores, kind of like an Apple store, where just only their products, but their whole line of products, and people can go there for that experience. That's kind of cool, but of course that skips me. But none of that worries me because it's crazy to be working in brick and mortar retail now anyways. So, what's Fender doing going into 2025? More direct sales to the customer. They are skipping over their dealers a little bit. I'm going to have a word with them when I have my annual meeting with them, and find out what's up with that. They're still a great brand. I'm not speaking badly about them in that way. They still make great things. I play, Fender guitars and amplifiers. I think we all do at some point in our life, at least. And it also ties in with the future of retail in that way. And that ties into just the larger future of retail, what's happening. Because also, when Fender decides to sell directly to the customers, it cuts out Amazon.com and Walmart.com and these gigantic online sellers. They're not just cutting out stores or independent dealers. And as long as there's a spot for me to sell their guitars, there's some Gretches and some Fenders over there, I'll keep selling their guitars and amps. Their amps are still selling well. Guitar sales are down a little bit. We'll see what they do about that. They've gotten a little pricing conundrum too. That's 2025, and we'll talk about that soon. Thanks for watching, and check out all the other videos here on YouTube, and subscribe and like, and we'll talk to you soon.